Akuoma spins around to face Nkiruka, hands on her hips and eyes narrowed. "Why are you standing there uselessly? Do you think this is a holiday, eh?" she barks. Nkiruka, who had been waving goodbye, quickly lowers her hand. "Go and wash all the clothes in the basket, scrub the cooking pots, and don't forget you still have to grind pepper for the soup. Move it." Akuoma's voice is so sharp that even a lizard scuttling by freezes in place. At dawn in the ancient Igbo village of Umuagu, the sky is a soft grey and the compound lies quiet. Round mud huts with thatched roofs stand side by side, forming a warm circle of family dwellings. In the center of Okeke's compound is the largest hut, the Obi, where the family's hearth and gatherings are held. The early morning air is cool and carries the scent of dew on dry grass. Even the chickens are still asleep on their perches, but one person in the compound is already wide awake. Nkiruka steps out of the small hut she shares with the kitchen pots and broomsticks. She is a gentle young girl of about 19, with kind eyes and a tired smile. Every day she wakes before the rooster crows, long before the sun even thinks of rising. While others dream, she begins her endless chores. First, she picks up a short broom made of palm fronds and starts sweeping the compound. Swish, swish, the broom brushes the dirt yard in steady strokes. She is careful to sweep every fallen leaf and chicken feather, leaving neat patterns in the dust. As she sweeps, Nkiruka hums a little song to keep herself company. Her voice is soft so she doesn't wake anyone. The only audience is a sleepy goat chewing lazily on some leftover cassava peel. "I sweep away the night, bring in the day," she whispers in tune. The compound must be spotless before her stepmother wakes. If not, Nkiruka will surely get an earful of scolding or worse. Next, she balances a clay water pot on her head and heads to the river. The river is far from the village, a good trek through a narrow footpath in the bush. Dawn light begins to peek through the trees as she walks, but Nkiruka knows this path by heart even in darkness. She moves quickly, humming to keep away her own fears of the dark bushes. One foot in front of the other, almost there, she encourages herself quietly. At the riverbank, the world is still peaceful. She fills the pot to the brim with cool, clear water and hoists it back up on her head. Many girls might spill half the water on the way home, but not in Nkiruka. She has the skill of a hard-working water carrier and not a drop escapes. By the time she returns to the compound with the heavy pot, the sun is rising, painting the sky orange. Nkiruka's neck and arms ache, but she doesn't rest. She pours some water into a basin and begins washing a towering pile of dishes left from the night before. Plates, wooden bowls and cooking pots, some still oily and sticky, all must be scrubbed clean. She uses sand and ashes as soap, her hands moving in circles until each dish gleams. Soap bubbles are a luxury here, so she makes do with what she has. Her reflection wobbles on the water's surface as she rinses the last calabash bowl, and she can't help but notice a smudge of soot on her cheek. With a wet finger, she rubs it off, revealing her smooth dark skin underneath. Just as Nkiruka finishes the dishes, the morning is in full swing. Birds chatter on the iroko tree by the compound gate. The village of Umuagu is waking up. Smoke begins to rise from neighboring huts as other women start their cooking fires. But in Okeke's household, only Nkiruka is up. Inside the largest hut, her stepmother Akuoma and Adako are still deep asleep. Adako, the stepsister, could win a gold medal in sleeping if it were a sport. She often snores until the sun is high and the chickens start wondering if she has turned into a log. Nkiruka wipes her wet hands on her threadbare wrapper and moves on to her next task, cooking the morning meal for everyone. She blows on the embers in the outdoor kitchen hearth until they glow red, then adds kindling. As flames leap up, she sets a clay pot of water to boil some pap for breakfast. She adds a few grains of salt, stirring slowly with a wooden ladle. Soon, the thin porridge is bubbling gently and the aroma floats through the air. Right on cue, just as the pap is ready, the door of Akuoma's hut creaks open. Out steps stepmother Akuoma, tying her expensive cloth wrapper around her waist. Akuoma's face is like a bitter kola nut, smooth and shiny on the outside, but very bitter on the inside. She clears her throat loudly, hands on her hips, surveying the compound. She loves to find something out of place so she can shout, but today she finds nothing to complain about, yet. The ground is swept clean, water is fetched, dishes are washed, and breakfast is ready. Nkiruka greets her politely. "Good morning, ma." She tries to sound cheerful, though she's already exhausted. Akuoma merely grunts in response, walking over to inspect the pot of pap. She lifts the lid and the pleasant steam hits her face. The stepmother takes a taste with a wooden spoon, her eyes narrow, searching for a reason to scold. Finding none, the pap is perfectly made as usual. She reluctantly nods. At least you didn't burn it today," Akuoma mutters. This is as close to praise as Nkiruka ever gets from her stepmother. By now, stepsister Adako finally stumbles out of the hut, rubbing her eyes and yawning as if she wrestled with sleep all night. Adako is nearly the same age as Nkiruka, but could not be more different in attitude. She drags her feet, complaining, "Why is the sun so bright? It's hurting my eyes." Never mind that the morning is actually mild. Adako just isn't a morning person, or an afternoon person, or an evening person. In fact, Adako isn't much of a work person at any time of day. When Nkiruka sees portioning out the pap into bowls, she wriggles her nose in mock concern. "Sister Nkiruka, you missed a spot there," she says, pointing to an imaginary speck on a bowl. Nkiruka knows Adako is just trying to sound bossy. There's nothing actually dirty on the bowl. Still, Nkiruka quietly rubs the spot with her fingernail to please her. "All clean now," she replies softly. Breakfast is a quick affair. Stepmother Akuoma and Adako sit on a bench in the shade, sipping their pap and munching on leftover yam, while Nkiruka stands nearby in case they need anything. They do not invite her to sit or eat with them. Instead, when Adako finishes, she thrusts her empty bowl at Nkiruka. "More," she demands, like a spoiled cat asking for a second saucer of milk. Nkiruka obeys, pouring another serving from the pot into Adako's bowl. Akuoma gulps down her pap and lets out a satisfied burp, not bothering to say thank you. She eyes Nkiruka with a stern look. "Have you fetched the firewood for today?" she snaps. Nkiruka immediately shakes her head. Fetching firewood wasn't on the morning list yet. "Then what are you standing here for? Move those lazy legs of yours and get to the forest before the sun gets too hot," Akuoma scolds, even though Nkiruka's legs have been far from lazy all morning. Without a word of protest, Nkiruka nods and heads off to gather firewood. Her stomach rumbles slightly. She hasn't eaten anything yet, but that will have to wait. As she walks out of the compound, she can hear Adako behind her letting out a dramatic sigh. This early rising is giving me a headache. Nkiruka can't help but smile a tiny bit at that. If only Adako knew what real work was, she thinks to herself, but she pushes the thought away. There is no use getting angry. It will only make her heart heavy. And so, as the day in Umuagu fully dawns, we see Nkiruka already hard at work carrying an empty basket towards the nearby forest to collect dry wood. Her back is already damp with sweat, but her spirit remains gentle. She has learned to survive by moving quietly and working diligently, like a little stream that flows steadily around obstacles. In her heart, Nkiruka holds on to a simple belief that keeps her going. One day, kindness will return to me. She whispers these words under her breath as she disappears down the narrow path under the tall palm trees, determined to face yet another day of challenges with a hopeful heart. Later that same day, as the sun hangs low like a golden calabash in the sky, Nkiruka's father, Okeke, returns home from one of his long trading trips. He comes walking down the dusty road with a sack over his shoulder, whistling a cheerful tune. The moment Akuoma, his wife, spots him from afar, her entire demeanor changes as fast as lightning. The scowl on her face melts into a bright smile. She had been scolding Nkiruka just a second ago for not stacking the firewood high enough, but now she practically sings, "Nkiruka, my dear, your father is coming. Hurry, go welcome him." Nkiruka runs to the road, heart filled with joy. She genuinely loves her father and only sees him occasionally because of his travels. Papa, welcome back, she calls out, waving. Okeke's face lights up when he sees his daughter. He drops his sack and gives Nkiruka a big warm hug. Ah, my sunshine, Nkiruka, look how you've grown. Have they been taking good care of you? He asks, peering at her closely. Nkiruka opens her mouth, wanting to tell him everything about the endless chores, the harsh words, the bruises on her knees from scrubbing floors. But before she can speak, Akoma sweeps in. Akoma practically dances over, pulling Okeke into an embrace before Nkiruka can answer. "Welcome home, my husband," she exclaims sweetly. "We missed you so much. I took very good care of our daughter. She is healthy and happy, just a bit shy to speak." Nkiruka lowers her eyes. She knows if she contradicts Akoma now, there will be trouble later. Adaku appears as well, suddenly looking as innocent as an angel. She even carries a small stool for her father to sit on, something she would never do normally. "Papa, come and rest. You must be tired," Adaku says in a syrupy voice. Nkiruka almost does a double take. Earlier this morning, Adaku wouldn't even lift a finger, and now here she is acting like a dutiful daughter. It would have been funny if it weren't so sadly fake. Okeke smiles proudly, unaware of the act. "It warms my heart to see my wife and daughters getting along so well," he says, settling onto the stool. "Akoma, thank you for looking after Nkiruka like your own. And Adaku, my dear, you're so kind to your father today," he chuckles, patting Adaku's head. Adaku grins, though the moment her father's gaze moves elsewhere, she shoots Nkiruka a sly look, as if to say, "You see how clever I am?" Nkiruka forces a small smile and goes to bring her father some water to drink. She returns with a wooden cup of cool water from the pot she fetched earlier. Okeke drinks deeply. "Ah, nothing tastes better than home after a long journey," he sighs contentedly. That evening, the household is like a different place. Akoma insists that Nkiruka sit with the family to eat, something that never happens when Okeke is away. She ladles out a generous portion of yam pottage for Nkiruka, acting every bit the loving stepmother. "Eat well, my daughter. You must be hungry," she coos. Adaku nods vigorously in agreement. "Yes, sister, eat. You work too hard." Nkiruka almost chokes in surprise at those words coming from Adaku's mouth. She can hardly believe they are treating her kindly, even if it's just a show for her father. At one point, Okeke notices a fading bruise on Nkiruka's forearm, a mark from when Akoma had pinched her in anger days before. "What happened here, Nkiruka?" he asks with concern. Nkiruka hesitates, but Akoma jumps in smoothly, wearing an expression of motherly worry. "Oh, that? She burnt herself a little while cooking. I told her to be careful. You know how hardworking she is. She doesn't even think of her own safety." Akoma gently pats Nkiruka's shoulder, a gesture so fake that the family dog would have howled if they had one. Okeke nods slowly, accepting the explanation. "My brave girl, always helping," he says to Nkiruka, giving her an affectionate smile. "Next time, be more careful, eh? Fire is not something to play with." Nkiruka simply replies, "Yes, Papa, I will." She ducks her head to hide the frustration in her eyes. Being called brave for an injury that was actually punishment feels like swallowing a bitter pill with a smile. As night falls, Okeke opens his sack of travel goods. "I brought gifts," he announces happily. He hands a colorful beaded necklace to Akoma, who claps her hands in delight as if she already had dozens of necklaces. "My husband, you always spoil me," she says, giving him a peck on the cheek. For Adaku, Okeke brings out a pretty carved wooden combs for her hair. "Thank you, Papa," she squeals, already holding them up to imagine how they'll look. Finally, Okeke turns to Nkiruka. From the bottom of the sack, he pulls out a carefully wrapped item. "And for my Nkiruka, here." Nkiruka unwraps it eagerly. Inside is a small hand-sewn cloth doll with a cheerful painted face and a dress made from patchwork fabric. It's simple but clearly made with love. Nkiruka's eyes fill with tears. She has not received a gift in a long time. "Oh, Papa, she's beautiful. Thank you," Nkiruka whispers, cradling the doll gently. Akoma and Adaku watch this exchange with thin smiles. The moment Okeke's attention shifts, Adaku rolls her eyes at the doll and sticks out her tongue behind their father's back, as if to say she thinks Nkiruka's gift is silly. Akoma quickly nudges Adaku to behave, then exclaims, "What a lovely doll! Nkiruka, you must be very happy. Your father is so kind." Her voice is sweet, but her eyes issue a silent warning to Nkiruka. Don't forget who's in charge when he's gone. That night, for the first time in ages, Nkiruka sleeps with a full stomach and a doll to hold. She cherishes these moments with her father at home. Lying on her mat, she hugs the cloth doll and imagines it is smiling at her. In the next room, she can hear her father and Akoma talking in low tones. Okeke is praising Akoma for being such a good wife and mother. Akoma responds with laughter that sounds like honey, saying it's nothing. She loves the girls equally. Nkiruka closes her eyes and sighs, wishing it were true. The warmth of her father's presence makes the whole compound feel safe. For one night, Nkiruka can rest without fear, knowing that no one will wake her with angry shouts or extra chores in the middle of the night. But in her heart, she also knows this peace is fragile. Okeke will not stay for long. By dawn in a day or two, he will likely set off again to trade in the next town or faraway market. Still, Nkiruka allows herself to smile in the darkness. She silently thanks the gods for granting her a brief respite. If only every day could be like this, with Papa at home and everyone kind. But life, especially hers, is not so simple. In the back of her mind, she hears Akoma's earlier scolding echo faintly, and she tightens her hug on the door. For now, though, she drifts to sleep to the comforting sound of her father's laughter rumbling softly through the wall. A rare sound in this house, like the gentle roll of distant thunder promising rain after a long drought. As expected, Okeke's visit is short. The very next morning, before the cock can finish crowing, he packs his bags to leave for another trading journey. Nkiruka fights back tears as she sees her father off at the village gate. "Be good, my girls. I'll be back soon," Okeke promises, hugging Nkiruka and then Adaku. Akoma dabs her eyes with the edge of her wrapper, pretending to be sad to see him go. "Travel safely, my husband. May the gods protect you," she says in a sugary tone. With a final wave, Okeke disappears down the road. The moment he is out of sight, Akwoma's smile vanishes like morning mist under the hot sun. The household atmosphere changes instantly. Akwoma spins around to face Nkiruka, hands on her hips and eyes narrowed. "Why are you standing there uselessly? Do you think this is a holiday, eh?" she barks. Nkiruka, who had been waving goodbye, quickly lowers her hand. "Go and wash all the clothes in the basket, scrub the cooking pots, and don't forget you still have to grind pepper for the soup. Move it." Akoma's voice is so sharp that even a lizard scuttling by freezes in place. Nkiruka nods and hurries to gather the pile of dirty clothes. The brief moment of tenderness from last night has evaporated. She heads to the backyard where a large clay pot of water and a wooden washing basin await. Rolling up her sleeves, she begins scrubbing the clothes with a bar of homemade lye soap. As she walks, Adaku lounges nearby under a mango tree, fanning herself lazily. Adaku has made it her morning hobby to supervise or rather to irritate Nkiruka at work. "You missed a spot on that wrapper," Adaku says, nibbling on a piece of sugarcane and pointing at a barely noticeable stain. Nkiruka bites her tongue and scrubs the spot again. No matter how well Nkiruka cleans, Adaku always claims to see something wrong. This water is starting to smell. Are you sure you didn't bring swamp water?" Adaku continues, wrinkling her nose theatrically. "Of course, the water is fine. She's just being troublesome." As Nkiruka hangs the clean clothes on a line, Adaku suddenly stretches and stands up. "I'm bored. I'm going inside to rest. Make sure my blue blouse is dried and ironed with a hot coal by this afternoon. I want to wear it," she tosses over her shoulder. Nkiruka responds, "Okay." She doesn't remind Adaku that she's the one who will have to light a fire to heat the iron, find coal and carefully press the blouse. Adaku knows this and doesn't care. Inside the kitchen hut, Akwama is preparing soup for lunch, but more than cooking, she's mulling over how to make Nkiruka's life even busier. "Lazy girl, I'm sure she's daydreaming out there," Akwama mutters to herself. Looking around, her eyes fall on a stack of clay plates that Nkiruka washed earlier. An idea forms in Akoma's mind, one of her favorite tricks. She calls out sweetly, "Nkiruka, my daughter, come help me here." Hearing the unusually sweet tone, Nkiruka approaches the kitchen cautiously. "Yes, ma," she answers at the doorway. Akuoma points to a large clay platter decorated with painted patterns, lying on the ground. "Take that platter to the shed and bring me the big sack of gari, cassava flour, that's behind it," she instructs. Nkiruka nods and moves quickly. She lifts the heavy platter carefully, carries it outside and lays it against the wall near the shed. Then she heads into the shed to find the sack of gari. As soon as Nkiruka disappears inside the shed, Akuoma gestures to Adako, who had sneaked back to watch. With a wicked grin, Adako tiptoes to where the platter stands and gives it a little push. Crash! The clay platter topples over and shatters on the hard ground, breaking into several pieces. It all happens just as Nkiruka emerges from the shed, sack of gari on her head. She freezes in horror at the sight of the broken platter. Akuoma rushes out, putting on an Oscar-worthy performance of shock and outrage. "Jimmy, oh my God, my beautiful platter," she wails, even throwing a hand dramatically over her head. "Nkiruka, you clumsy goat, what have you done?" Nkiruka's eyes widen. I just put it there like you said," she stammers, nearly dropping the sack of gari from her head in panic. Before she can explain further, Adaku jumps in, pretending to be horrified. "Oh no, Mama, I saw it with my own eyes," Adaku lies shamelessly. "Nkiruka just flung the platter down carelessly. I think she was angry you asked her to carry gari, so she broke it on purpose." She puts on a fake sorrow, shaking her head. "Such jealousy in her heart, Mama. Perhaps she was upset you didn't give her more meat in her soup last night." Nkiruka's jaw drops open at the audacity of Adaku's lies. "No, that's not true. I would never," she tries to protest, but Akuoma has heard enough. The stepmother's face darkens like a storm cloud. She marches up to Nkiruka and snatches the sack of gari off her head, tossing it aside. "So, you have decided to become a destroyer of property now, eh? After all our kindness to you?" Akuoma snarls, eyes blazing. Nkiruka's heart sinks. Any hope that Akuoma might see reason is dashed. "It was an accident," she whispers, tears starting to form. Akuoma is having none of it. She grabs Nkiruka by the ear, twisting it just enough to hurt, and drags her towards the center of the compound. "Ow, Mama, please!" Nkiruka pleads, trying to keep up on tiptoe to ease the pain in her ear. Akuoma lets go and points to a spot on the ground. "Kneel there," she orders. Nkiruka obeys at once, dropping to her knees on the rough dirt. The noise has drawn a few curious glances from neighbors passing by. Through the open gate of the compound, a couple of village women slow their steps, whispering to each other. One of them, an older woman named Auntie Filma, who likes Nkiruka, looks as if she might intervene, but her friend quickly tugs at her arm and shakes her head. Everyone in the village knows Akuoma's temper and her talent for vicious gossip. The last person who tried to stand up for Nkiruka, a young man who shouted at Akuoma to stop mistreating the girl, found himself the main subject of Akuoma's public ridicule for weeks. She spread rumors that the man was a thief and even threatened to curse him. Since then, people keep their distance, though they feel sorry for Nkiruka. Akuoma notices the onlookers and raises her voice even louder, putting on a show. "Nkiruka, you ungrateful child. We give you shelter and food, and you repay us with smashing our belongings," she shouts for all to hear. She picks up one of the broken shards of the platter and waves it dramatically. "This was my late mother's favorite platter, a family heirloom, and look what you did." In truth, that platter was bought cheaply at the market 2 years ago, but Akuoma never let facts get in the way of a good performance. Adaku stands behind her, frowning and nodding in false disapproval, as if heartbroken by Nkiruka's supposed misdeed. Nkiruka remains on her knees, head bowed, tears slipping down her cheeks. She knows arguing will only bring harsher punishment. "For breaking this platter," Akuoma declares, "you will receive no food today, not one morsel. Do you hear me? Maybe hunger will teach you to be careful." Nkiruka's stomach churns in despair. She hasn't eaten since the little bit of breakfast at dawn. The thought of a full day's labor with no food is daunting, but she nods meekly. "Yes, ma," she answers in a small voice. Akuoma is not done. And you will pick up every last piece of this broken plate with your bare hands. If I find even a tiny fragment left, you'll sleep outside with the goats, she adds. Without hesitation, Nkiruka begins picking up the sharp pieces, one by one. Her knees are stinging from kneeling on the hard ground, but she doesn't dare shift position until Akuoma tells her she can. Adako smirks, enjoying the show. The neighbors slowly move along, muttering among themselves. They pity Nkiruka, but no one wants to face Akuoma's wrath or be the target of her infamous gossip. It's as if Akuoma holds the village by the ear the way she did Nkiruka moments ago. Everyone is afraid to cross her. After Nkiruka collects the broken pieces in her apron, Akuoma finally allows her to stand and dispose of them. Nkiruka walks to the refuse pit behind the compound, her legs wobbly. She dumps the shards, careful not to cut herself. She is hungry, shaky, and humiliated, but even now she takes a deep breath to steady herself. She reminds herself of her mother's words from long ago, what she barely remembers her real mother saying. No condition is permanent. Keep doing good, my child. Adako, bored now that the drama is over, skips off to find a snack, perhaps some fried plantains a neighbor is selling. Akuoma returns to her cooking, muttering about how she'll have to buy a new platter. She emphasizes new, as if the old one truly had sentimental value. Nkiruka, left alone for the moment, allows a few more tears to fall once she's sure no one is watching. But she quickly wipes her face with the back of her hand and sniffs back the rest of the tears. Crying won't finish the chores, she tells herself. There is laundry still to iron, peppers to grind on the stone, floors to sweep again after lunch, and many other tasks before nightfall. Despite the hunger gnawing at her belly and the unfair punishment, Nkiruka assumes her work. As she scrubs the cooking pot for dinner, her arms heavy, she whispers to herself her constant mantra, "One day, kindness will return to me." Saying it out loud gives her a sliver of comfort. At that moment, her empty stomach growls loudly in agreement, almost making her laugh at the awkward timing. Even in hardship, Nkiruka manages a tiny smile at herself, a smile that no one else sees. It is a seed of hope she keeps watered with her own tears, quietly believing that someday, somehow, life will reward her gentle spirit. A few days later, the harsh memories of the broken platter incident still linger, but Nkiruka carries on with her duties. One hot afternoon, she is washing clothes by a little stream that runs behind their compound. The stream is narrow and shaded by banana trees, a quiet place where Nkiruka often does laundry to avoid Akuoma's constant glare. She scrubs a blouse against the washing stone, humming faintly to distract herself from hunger pangs. As usual, she had only a small bite of leftover cocoyam for breakfast. As the sun beats down and cicadas buzz in the grass, Nkiruka suddenly hears a faint sound over the trickling of the stream. It sounds like someone crying or perhaps groaning in pain. She lifts her head, water dripping from a cloth in her hands. "Hello? Is someone there?" she calls softly. At first, there's no response, just the rustle of leaves. Then she hears it again. Definitely a weak cry coming from the footpath just beyond the compound's rear fence. Curious and concerned, Nkiruka sets aside the half-washed clothes and wipes her wet hands on her skirt. She follows a narrow path through the bushes. Behind a clump of thorny shrubs, she finds an old woman sitting on the ground. The woman looks extremely frail. Her grey hair is untidy and her wrapper is torn and dusty. She's holding her ankle and rocking slightly as if in pain. Nkiruka's eyes widen with compassion. "Mama, what happened? Are you hurt?" she asks gently. She kneels beside the old woman. Up close, the woman looks even more pitiful. Her cheeks are sunken with hunger and her lips dry. The old woman blinks at Nkiruka. Her eyes are cloudy, but there's a spark of surprise in them as she takes in the young girl's concerned face. "Ah, my child," she croaks in a feeble voice. "I am just a tired old lady. I haven't eaten since yesterday. I was trying to find the main road and I twisted my ankle on a tree root. Now I cannot walk further." She winces, rubbing her ankle, which is slightly swollen. Nkiruka feels a pang in her heart. This could be any village grandmother, alone and hungry. Without hesitation, Nkiruka reaches into the pocket tied at her waist. She remembers she has a small bundle of food, A few bites of gari, dried cassava flakes wrapped in plantain leaf that she saved from the previous night. It's not much, but it's the only food she has. Mama, here, Nkiruka says softly, unwrapping the precious little bundle. It's not a feast, but please eat. It will give you strength. She pours a bit of water from her gourd into the packet of gari to soften it, making an instant porridge. Then she carefully lifts it to the old woman's lips. The old woman looks at the offering in astonishment. Are you giving me your food? She asks, as though she can hardly believe it. Nkiruka smiles shyly. It's the only food I have for today, but you need it more than I do, she insists. Please eat, Mama. Tears spring to the old woman's eyes, though whether it's from gratitude or something else, Nkiruka cannot tell. The old woman accepts the gari porridge with trembling hands and slowly eats. Nkiruka watches to make sure she's eating all right. As the woman swallows each bite, some color returns to her face. When she finishes, the old woman sighs in relief. Thank you, my daughter. May the gods bless you. I was certain I would faint on this path, but you have saved me, she says, her voice a bit stronger now. Nkiruka blushes and shakes her head. I did nothing grand, Mama. It was only gari, she says modestly. The old woman gently pats Nkiruka's hand. Only gari? To a starving person, a cup of gari is a royal banquet, she says with a faint chuckle. At this, Nkiruka notices the old woman's eyes. Though old and cloudy, they now shine with a kindness and wisdom that seem almost otherworldly. The old woman tries to stand but winces at her ankle. Immediately, Nkiruka loops the old woman's arm over her own shoulder. Lean on me, she offers. With Nkiruka's support, the woman hobbles a few steps to sit on a fallen log for comfort. They rest a moment. A soft breeze picks up, rustling the leaves overhead and bringing a bit of cool relief from the heat. The old woman studies Nkiruka's face quietly, as if searching for something. After a pause, she speaks in a low, gentle tone. My dear, why were you crying before? I see sadness in your eyes. Nkiruka is startled by the question. She didn't realize the old woman could tell that her eyes were red from crying earlier, after another scolding from Akoma that morning. Nkiruka forces a smile. Oh, don't mind that, Mama. It's nothing. Just some soap got in my eyes while I was washing, she fibs to avoid trouble. The old woman gives a knowing look, but doesn't press further. Instead, the old woman reaches into the folds of her ragged clothing and pulls out a tiny object, a small bead made of clay. It's about the size of a small grape, reddish brown with a simple spiral pattern etched into it. She holds it out to Nkiruka. Take this, the old woman says. Nkiruka hesitates. The bead looks old and perhaps not worth much. Oh, Mama, you don't need to give me anything, she protests softly. I'm just glad you're feeling better. But the old woman insists, pressing the cool clay bead into Nkiruka's palm. Listen to me, child, she says, and suddenly her voice has a strangely commanding tone, despite its softness. This bead is special. I want you to wear it only when the moon is full. Promise me that. Nkiruka blinks, a little confused by the request. Only when the moon is full, she repeats. It is a peculiar instruction, but she doesn't want to offend the old woman, who seems very serious. I promise, Mama, I will wear it on the full moon night. As soon as she promises, the old woman's face breaks into a wide, almost youthful smile. For a moment, Nkiruka thinks she sees the wrinkles on her face ease, and her posture straightens slightly, as if a burden has been lifted. The breeze swells again, blowing some dry leaves around their feet. The old woman then places her dry, cool hand on Nkiruka's cheek, wiping a bit of soap residue, or perhaps a tear. She says something that Nkiruka doesn't fully understand but finds beautiful. Your tears water seeds the world cannot see. The words hang in the air, musical and mysterious. Nkiruka feels a small shiver despite the heat of the afternoon. What could that mean, she wonders. Before she can ask, the old woman gives a soft pat on her cheek and whispers, Thank you, my good child. May your kindness light your path. Nkiruka turns for just a second to set the empty gari leaf bundle aside and to pick up the basin of half-washed clothes. She plans to help the old woman further or call someone for help. But when she turns back, the old woman is gone. The log is empty, the path behind it silent. Nkiruka spins around, worried the woman might have wandered off and fallen. Mama, Mama, she calls, stepping a few paces down the path. There's no sign of the frail lady anywhere, as if she vanished into thin air. only the faint scent of jasmine lingers in the air, a scent that wasn't there before. A nearby bush sways gently, though there is no breeze now. After searching for a minute and finding nothing, Nkiruka slowly walks back to the stream, the clay bead clutched in her hand. She's not sure if the old woman was real or some kind of apparition sent by the ancestors. The encounter feels like a dream, but the bead in her hand is very real, solid and smooth. Nkiruka ties the bead securely in the corner of her headscarf for safekeeping. Her stomach might be empty, but her heart feels a little more full. Your tears water seeds the world cannot see, she repeats to herself softly, trying to unravel the phrase. Perhaps it means that all her silent suffering and kindness are not for nothing, like watering unseen seeds that will grow into something good later. She doesn't know for sure, but thinking this gives her hope. With a new sense of wonder, Nkiruka goes back to finish washing the clothes. The sun is starting to dip towards evening. She must hurry before Akoma finds another reason to shout. However, now she has a secret comfort tucked away in her scarf, a little clay bead, and the memory of an old woman's blessing. As she wrings out the last blouse, Nkiruka glances up at the sky. In a few nights' time, the moon will be full. Somehow, she knows that whatever happens then, it will be important. And for the first time in a long time, Nkiruka actually looks forward to tomorrow. True to the old woman's warning, Nkiruka's trials aren't over yet. In fact, as the next week unfolds, Akoma and Adaku's cruelty reaches new heights. It seems the stepmother and her daughter have grown bored of the usual scoldings and extra chores. Now they seek entertainment in Nkiruka's suffering. One market day, Akoma decides to take Adaku to the village market to buy some new jewelry. After all, they must prepare to look their finest if any important events come up. Of course, Nkiruka is dragged along as their personal potter. She walks a few paces behind them, carrying a large basket on her head to hold whatever goods Akoma purchases. The village market is bustling with activity. Under thatched stalls, traders shout out prices of vegetables, dried fish, spices, and cloth. Villagers haggle and gossip. Children chase each other around goats tied to posts. Normally, Nkiruka likes the market's lively atmosphere and the chance to see friendly faces. But today, with Akoma and Adaku leading the way, she feels only anxiety. They will surely find a way to make this outing miserable for her. After buying some beads and a fine comb for Adaku, Akoma stops by the stall of a palm oil seller. As she chats laundry with the seller, boasting about some non-existent family accomplishment, she loves to impress others with tall tales. Adaku grows restless. Adaku's eyes then fall on Nkiruka, who is standing quietly with the heavy basket on her head, sweat trickling down her face in the midday heat. A wicked idea sparks in her mind. Nearby, a butcher is washing his cutting table, and he has a bucket full of murky, blood-tinged water from rinsing off meat. Adaku nudges her mother and whispers something. Akoma glances at the bucket of dirty water and grins slyly. Akoma calls out sweetly to Nkiruka, loud enough for people nearby to hear. "Nkiruka, my dear, you look so hot and dirty. Come, let's clean you up." Her overly pleasant tone immediately puts Nkiruka on guard. Before Nkiruka can react, Akoma and Adaku each grab a handle of the butcher's slushing bucket. With one swift move, they fling the entire contents of filthy water straight on Nkiruka. The water, full of soap scum, blood from fish and meat, and who knows what else, hits Nkiruka like a wave. Splash! Dirty, smelly liquid drenches her from head to toe. Bits of vegetable peel and even a floating chicken feather stick to her now soaked hair and dress. For a moment, the whole market seems to pause in shock. Water drips off Nkiruka's eyelashes as she stands trembling, eyes shut from the sting of soap and salt. Then, a few snickers break the silence. Adaku points at Nkiruka and bursts into laughter. "Look at the poor dear, Mama. We gave her a bath, but she's still as ugly as ever." Akoma joins in, cackling loudly. "Maybe we should scrub her with a broom too to get the dirt out," she jeers. A couple of onlookers chuckle uncertainly, not sure if it's a joke or cruelty. Unfortunately, in a public setting like this, many assume it's some strange family humor or lesson. One young man who is unaware of Nkiruka's situation laughs and calls out, "Hey ya, sister, did a rain cloud only burst on you?" His friends snicker. Another woman selling tomatoes shakes her head and mutters, "That poor girl," but she keeps her eyes on her tomatoes, not daring to confront Akoma. Nkiruka is mortified. Her cheeks burn with shame and tears prick at her eyes, mixing with the dirty water on her face. She drops the basket from her head. It hits the ground with a thud, produce spilling out. She's too shocked to even apologize for the dropped goods. Her hands shake as she tries to wipe grime off her face. Akoma clocks her tongue in mock concern. "Oh dear, clumsy girl, see what you've done. You've dropped all our things," she scolds, as if the drenching were Nkiruka's fault. "Pick them up immediately." Humiliated beyond words, Nkiruka crouches to gather the scattered items back into the basket. Her wet wrapper squelches with every movement. People are still staring. Some are whispering. Nkiruka catches fragments like "such cruelty" and "that stepmother is wicked" from a few sympathetic folks. But none of them step forward to challenge Akoma or help Nkiruka. As Nkiruka struggles to pick up a rolling yam from under a store, an elderly man's shaky voice speaks up nearby. "Madam Akoma, have a heart. The girl has had enough," says one of the village elders who had been sitting by the store weaving a basket. There is a flicker of courage in his eyes. Akoma turns a cold stare on the old man. She recognizes him as a minor elder with no strong family backing. With a saccharine smile that doesn't reach her eyes, she replies, "Elder, this is a family matter. I'm teaching my daughter some hygiene. Surely you don't object to a little discipline. Or shall I tell everyone how I saw you last week, sneaking palm wine before noon?" Her voice is sweet, but dripping with threat. The elder's face falls and he shakes his head, backing off and mumbling, "No, it's not my business. Carry on." Satisfied that no one else will interfere, Akoma turns back to Nkiruka. "Hurry up, you tortoise. We don't have all day," she snaps. Adaku, meanwhile, is practically dancing with glee at the spectacle, exaggerating her laughter to keep the crowd amused. A few people laugh along nervously, others just look away pretending to focus on their own errands. Finally, Nkiruka gets the last of the items back in the basket. She is completely soaked and smells awful. Every part of her feels humiliated and cold despite the hot sun. Her heart pounds with a mix of sorrow and anger. Anger not at her stepfamily, she's too used to their abuse, but at herself for not being able to do anything about it. As they leave the market, Akoma gives one last show for the audience. She hands the empty bucket, which they had borrowed for this cruel prank, back to the butcher with a grin. "Thank you, my friend. Such good water. See how clean she is now." The butcher, who had stood by helplessly, just nods awkwardly, taking his bucket. He dare not confront a customer, especially one as domineering as Akoma. The walk home is painful. Nkiruka trudges behind, her wet slippers chafing her feet. Her clothes cling uncomfortably. Akoma and Adaku walk ahead, chatting cheerfully, ignoring the girl trailing them. Each step Nkiruka takes leaves a little wet footprint mixed with mud, a sad trail that fades quickly in the dust of the road. By the time they reach the compound, the water on Nkiruka has mostly evaporated, leaving behind a crust of dirt on her skin and a foul odor. Akoma wrinkles her nose in fake disgust. "Go fetch clean water and wash yourself. You stink," she orders brusquely. Nkiruka moves to obey, too defeated to even nod. As Nkiruka fetches a fresh bucket of well water to rinse herself, Adaku leans against the hot wall, still smirking. "Next time, maybe it will be pig wash instead," she says casually, referring to the even filthier water from cleaning pig pens. Nkiruka hears this as she pours water over her head behind a small privacy screen. She shivers, partly from the cool water, partly from dread. She wonders if there will be a next time, and what worse could come. Cleansed of the market filth, but still carrying the emotional scars, Nkiruka finishes washing and changes into her one other set of clothes, a thin, worn dress that used to be her mother's. She quietly goes about finishing the evening chores with her head down, avoiding eye contact with Akoma or Adaku as much as possible. That night, alone on her mat, Nkiruka lets herself cry freely, muffling the sound into her pillow so no one will hear. She recalls the old woman's words, "Your tears water seeds the world cannot see." If that is true, she thinks, then by now I must have a whole forest of invisible trees growing somewhere because of my tears. The thought is a strange comfort, and she even chuckles darkly at the image of a magical forest irrigated by her misery. Through the tiny window of her hut, Nkiruka can see the moon, almost full, casting silver light on the compound. She remembers the bead. Sitting up, she unties the corner of her headscarf and takes out the small clay bead the old woman gave her. In the shaft of moonlight, the bead looks ordinary, just a dull bit of fired clay. But Nkiruka holds it to her heart and whispers, "Tomorrow night is the full moon. I wonder if anything will really happen if I wear this." She has nothing to lose, so she decides she will do it. If hope is a seed, perhaps this bead is the water to help it grow, she muses. That little imaginative thought put a faint smile on her lips. Despite the pain of the day, Nkiruka falls asleep with the bead clutched in her hand, like a child holding a comforting toy. In her dreams, perhaps, seeds watered by tears finally sprout into flowers under a bright full moon. One way or another, she feels that change, for better or for worse, is on the horizon. The next night, the full moon rises high and bright over Umuagu, shining like a giant lantern in the sky. Its silver light bathes the roofs of the huts and the dusty compound in an ethereal glow. Nkiruka has been anxiously waiting for this moment all day, her heart fluttering each time she remembered the bead in her pocket. Akwoma and Adaku retired early to their hut after a day of bossing Nkiruka around as usual. By some stroke of luck, or perhaps the gods' mercy, they did not torment her as badly today, likely saving their energy for the upcoming royal feast, which rumors say the prince will announce soon. This gave Nkiruka a little breathing space to anticipate the night. Now, in the quiet of late evening, Nkiruka slips out of the small lean-to where she sleeps. She steps into the center of the compound where the moonlight is brightest. The air is still and slightly cool. In the distance, crickets are chirping a nighttime song. Nkiruka's heart beats fast. She hopes her stepmother and stepsister remain asleep. The last thing she needs is them waking up to find her idling about. With trembling fingers, Nkiruka takes out the tiny clay bead. It rests in her palm, looking so ordinary that for a moment she wonders if she isn't being foolish. Could this really do anything? Maybe the old woman was just a hungry traveler and not a spirit or fairy. Maybe the bead is just a bead. But she gave her word to wear it on the full moon. And deep down, Nkiruka feels a strange certainty that she must follow the instruction. A promise is a promise, and hope is a precious thing. She closes her eyes briefly and whispers a small prayer to any benevolent spirit listening, then she presses the bead to her chest. As soon as the bead touches her skin, it begins to glow softly. Nkiruka gasps and almost drops it in surprise. The clay bead emits a gentle golden light, like a firefly or a tiny star in her hand. Her mouth falls open in awe. This is clearly not ordinary clay. With renewed excitement, Nkiruka finds a thin strip of leather rope, which she had brought for this purpose, and threads it through the bead's hole to make a simple necklace. Her hands are shaking slightly from anticipation. She then ties the necklace around her neck, letting the bead rest just below her throat. For a moment, nothing more happens. Nkiruka looks around at herself. Same bare feet, same threadbare second-hand dress, same quiet night. She exhales, wondering if perhaps the magic needs time or... Suddenly, a breeze stirs seemingly out of nowhere. It starts as a whisper of wind, then grows into a gentle whirl that rustles the dry leaves on the ground. The breeze swirls around Nkiruka, lifting the edges of her dress and playing with her hair. It feels a tingling sensation on her skin, like when you dip into a cool stream on a hot day. The bead on her neck shines brighter, casting a warm glow on her face. Nkiruka's eyes widen as she watches a miraculous transformation begin. Her ragged cotton dress, stained and torn from years of work, begins to shimmer. It's as if an invisible painter is brushing new colors and patterns on the fabric. The dull brown cloth turns into a rich, vibrant blue, the color of a twilight sky. Intricate gold and white designs bloom across the fabric, looking like hand embroidery done by the finest craftsman in seconds. The skirt of her dress lengthens and twirls around her legs, no longer awkwardly short from outgrowing it. It becomes a flowing wrapper of sorts, adorned with tiny cowrie shells at the hem that jingle softly. Nkiruka's old headscarf slips off, and as her hair tumbles down, it braids itself into a neat, elegant style. She touches her hair in disbelief. It feels oiled and decorated. Sure enough, when she lifts a strand, she finds small, glistening beads and combs holding the braids together, similar to the expensive combs Akuoma bought for Adaku, but even more exquisite. Nkiruka's skin tingles all over. The bruises and scars that marked her arms and legs from hard labor and punishment begin to fade. The scrape on her knee from kneeling on rocky ground, the burn mark on her arm from a cooking accident, even the tiny scar on her cheek from a childhood fall, all of them vanish as if wiped away by an eraser. Her dark skin takes on a healthy, radiant glow under the moonlight. Over her shoulders, a light shawl materializes, soft and white, as if woven from moonbeams and cotton. It settles gently around her like a protective cloud. Nkiruka looks down at herself, utterly astonished. She hardly recognizes her own body and clothes. She feels lighter, graceful, and beautiful. "Is this really me?" she whispers. She runs her hands over the new dress, marveling at the quality of the fabric. It doesn't tear when she pulls at it lightly, like her old clothes that would rip with one tug. The embroidered patterns are of birds and flowers. She even finds a tiny motif of the moon near the hem, shining subtly. A small sound escapes her, half laugh, half sob. It's a sound of pure joy and relief. She cannot remember the last time she felt beautiful or unblemished. It's as though all the dirt and pain of her life was washed away in that magical breeze. Suddenly, from the hut, there is a groggy murmur. Akuoma stirs in her sleep, perhaps sensing some disturbance in the air. Nkiruka freezes, eyes darting to the hut door. The breeze immediately stills and the glowing bead dims slightly, as if the magic knows to hide itself from unwanted eyes. Akuoma's voice comes muffled. "Adaku, shut the door. I feel a draft." It seems she woke just enough to complain. After a moment, her grumbling stopped. Perhaps Adaku turned over and blocked the draft, or Akuoma fell back into slumber out of sheer laziness to get up. Nkiruka waits a few heartbeats in tense silence. When she's sure Akuoma isn't coming out, she exhales in relief. Her secret remains safe for now. She tiptoes to her own hut, the new attire rustling softly with each step. Inside, by the light of the still glowing bead around her neck, she sees her reflection in a small shard of mirror propped on a shelf. The face looking back at her takes her breath away. It is indeed Nkiruka, but a version of her that looks like a princess from the old folk tales. Her eyes seem brighter, her posture taller, and her expression hopeful. She touches the bead gently. It feels warm, almost alive. A grateful smile spreads across her face. In a low voice, she says, "Thank you, thank you." Not sure if she's thanking the old woman, the gods, or whatever kind force is responsible for this magic. Perhaps all of them. Wrapping the soft shawl tighter around herself, Nkiruka finally lies down to rest. She worries for a moment if the beautiful outfit will disappear by morning, but something in her gut tells her this is not a temporary dream. It's a gift meant to stay, at least for a while. And indeed, as she drifts to sleep, the bead's light gently fades to a faint pulse, like a content heartbeat, as if standing guard through the night. For the first time in forever, Nkiruka slept deeply and peacefully, untroubled by nightmares or the next day's chores. Unknown to her, as she slept, a single firefly came in through the window and danced around her bead-lit neck, as if acknowledging one of its own, a new light in the darkness. Outside, the full moon continued its watch, shining down on the slumbering girl who dared to believe in a little magic. At dawn, Nkiruka awakens feeling more refreshed than she has in years. Sunlight peeks through her hut's window, and she stretches, recalling the incredible events of the night. She quickly touches the bead at her neck. It's still there, now cool and quiet, but she remembers its power. Looking down, she notices that while she still wears a lovely blue dress, it seems to have simplified at daybreak to avoid drawing too much attention. It is no longer the extravagant shimmering gown of last night, but it's clean, well-fitting, and far better than her usual rags. It's as if the magic kindly decided to give her an everyday version of the outfit. Her skin still looks healthy and smooth, and her hair remains neatly braided with a few modest beads. Nkiruka smiles gratefully. Even this simpler attire is more than she ever hoped to own. She wraps a plain apron around herself to protect her nice dress from dirt and perhaps to partially disguise the upgrade, then heads out to start her chores as usual. But she soon discovers that this morning will be anything but usual. When Nkiruka picks up her broom to sweep the compound, the strangest thing happens. The broom leaps out of her hand and begins sweeping on its own. Nkiruka jumps back in surprise. The broom moves briskly across the yard as if guided by invisible hands, brushing every leaf and speck of dust to the side. It even sweeps under corners and around the chicken coop without Nkiruka's help. Nkiruka's first thought is to panic. Maybe a mischievous spirit has possessed the broom. But then she notices the bead on her necklace give a subtle warm pulse. She realizes this must be another gift of the magic. Whatever she sets out to do, the tools will aid her. A grin slowly spreads over her face as she watches the broom finish the entire sweeping job in mere minutes, a task that usually takes her a long, tiring hour bent over. Next, she approaches the pile of laundry that she had washed the day before, the very clothes that had gotten dirty in the market fiasco. They had dried on the line overnight and were waiting to be folded. She touches one of Adako's dresses to fold it, and instantly the dress folds itself into a perfect square, as though ironed and pressed by an expert hand. Piece by piece, each clothing item in the pile magically folds or rolls itself under her light touch. Nkiruka let out a small giggle of amazement. She can hardly believe it. Her work continues in this enchanted manner. When she carries the water pot from the river, it feels light as a feather, despite being full. She could almost swear the pot was floating just a little above her head, making it effortless to carry. She tests the idea by briefly lifting her hands away, and indeed, the pot hovers on her head stably without much support. She quickly holds it again, heart pounding with excitement at this new ease. In the kitchen, Nkiruka prepares the morning meal. She decides on yam porridge and vegetable soup, a simple but hearty breakfast. Normally, she'd be hurried and worried about making it tasty enough to avoid complaints. Today, as she stirs the pot, a delicious aroma fills the air, richer and more inviting than anything she's ever cooked before. She tastes a spoonful and her eyes widen. It's absolutely perfect, better than any version of this dish she's ever made before. Not too salty, not too bland. The yams are soft and well seasoned, the vegetables cooked to tender perfection. It tastes like something made by a master cook. By the time Akuoma and Adako wake up, the compound is gleaming. The morning sun reflects off the swept ground and even off the clay walls of the huts, which somehow look brighter and cleaner. Nkiruka had only lightly brushed them with a broom, but they gleam as if freshly plastered. The old cracked water gourd by the door has been scrubbed so well it looks new. Even the family sandals, usually strewn about, have been arranged neatly in a line and polished to a gentle shine. Suspicious, Akuoma narrows her eyes at Nkiruka, which is just coming out of the kitchen with bowls of steaming yam porridge. Akuoma can't find something obvious to scold, which is her usual morning routine. "Good morning, ma," Nkiruka says, trying to sound normal, though inside she's bubbling with happiness. "Breakfast is ready." Akuoma says nothing yet. She marches over to the corner of the yard where she loves to catch Nkiruka missing a spot. With one finger, she swipes along the top of a low mud wall, a place that usually collects dust. She examines her finger. It comes away perfectly clean. She huffs and then inspects the firewood pile. All sticks are stacked orderly, and even the ground around it is free of the usual wood chips. Meanwhile, Adako is drawn toward the breakfast bowls by the incredible smell. Mama, I'm so hungry, she mumbles, reaching for a bowl on the tray in Nkiruka's hands. Forgetting her usual habit of complaining, Adako shovels a spoonful of yam porridge into her mouth. Her eyes go wide and she practically melts with delight. This is so good, she mumbles with her mouth full. Then, ow, because it's hot. But she quickly blows and takes another spoon. So tasty! Mama, come try this! Akuoma, still standing in the yard bewildered, turns at her daughter's change of tone. It's rare for Adako to praise anything that Nkiruka cooks. With a raised eyebrow, Akuoma takes her own bowl and sits on a stool. Nkiruka stands by nervously, wondering if the food will truly please her stepmother. Cautiously, Akuoma takes a bite. Immediately, her stern face eases into an expression of surprise. The rich flavors dance on her tongue. She tries to maintain her tough facade, but a satisfied grin sneaks through. She says, trying to sound unimpressed, yet failing. It's acceptable. In truth, it's the most delicious breakfast she can recall. She can't find a single thing to complain about, which in turn almost annoys her because it removes her daily opportunity to berate Nkiruka. Adako has already finished her portion and shamelessly reaches for seconds, something she rarely did with Nkiruka's cooking before. Nkiruka, did you put honey in this or what? She asks, licking her spoon. It's just perfect. Nkiruka smiles timidly. I just cooked it the way I normally do, she says. That is not exactly true. She did everything the same, but the magic clearly enhanced it. Still, neither Akuoma nor Adaku suspect magic. The idea of Nkiruka doing anything extraordinary is far from their minds. They just assume she finally managed to do something right for once, or perhaps they think their own luck has turned. After eating, Adaku belches contentedly and stretches. That was good, she admits, giving Nkiruka a lazy thumbs up, an absurdly friendly gesture from someone who yesterday was threatening to dump pig wash on her. Akuoma, trying to regain some authority, clears her throat. Yes, fine, the food was not terrible, she concedes, which for her is high praise. But Nkiruka, don't get a big head, there is still work to do. She looks around, trying to find any chore undone. But even as she does, Nkiruka is already ahead of her. The laundry folded and put away. The floors swept and shining. The goats fed and their pen cleaned. The goat pen no longer even smells bad, thanks to a quick magical tidy-up Nkiruka did while fetching water. Akuoma is flustered. Well, go and polish my stool in the Obi house, she commands, referring to the wooden throne-like chair in the family's reception hut. It's already fairly clean, but Akuoma is desperate to give Nkiruka something to do that might take her down a peg. Nkiruka obeys cheerfully. She grabs the rag and heads to the Obi, the central hut used for receiving visitors. Inside, the wooden stool that Akuoma prizes has a few dull spots. Nkiruka gives it a single wipe with her rag and instantly the stool gleams so brightly that she can see her reflection in it. She almost laughs out loud. If she keeps this up, Akuoma might be able to use it as a mirror. She returns quickly, too quickly for Akuoma's liking. I've polished it, ma, she announces. Akuoma goes to check and nearly slips on the floor of the Obi because it's so smooth and polished. She steadies herself on the stool and sees her own face shining back. For a moment, she's taken aback. This is, she stutters, ridiculously clean, she wants to say, but that's not exactly an insult. Akuoma comes out of the Obi to find Nkiruka already washing the dishes from breakfast. Adaku is lounging in a bamboo chair, picking her teeth contentedly, clearly in a good mood after the meal. Mama, maybe we should let Nkiruka cook like this every day, Adaku says with a smirk. Who knows, maybe tomorrow her food will turn to actual chocolate. She laughs, treating it as a joke, though part of her is wondering how a simple yam porridge could taste so heavenly. Akuoma is not entirely comfortable. She senses something odd about how smoothly the morning has gone. For someone who enjoys exerting power through complaints and punishment, a flawless morning is almost like a loss of purpose. She eyes Nkiruka suspiciously. The girl is humming a tune while scrubbing a pot, which magically becomes shiny as gold under her hands. Usually, Nkiruka looks exhausted and fearful by this time of day, but today she seems content, maybe even slightly radiant. Akoma can't pinpoint it, but Nkiruka's skin indeed seems to have a healthy glow. And is that a new dress she's wearing? It looks unfamiliar, simple but nice. Before Akoma can interrogate that, a neighbor pops her head over the compound fence. It's Mama Chinyere, a friend of Akoma's and fellow gossip. "Good morning, oh," she greets. "I just had to comment. Your compound is sparkling today, oh. Are you expecting special visitors?" Mama Chinyere's eyes roam admiringly over the clean yard, and she sniffs, and something smells delicious. "I'm jealous. My lazy daughter barely boiled our yam this morning." Akoma, never one to miss a chance to brag, immediately puffs up. Though she's perplexed herself, she seizes the credit. "Ah, my dear, you know I run a tight ship here," she lies, drawing herself up proudly. "I said to myself, nothing but the best hygiene standards." I laughed a little awkwardly. "You should have seen me supervising this morning. We scrubbed everywhere." Nkiruka, hearing the clean pots, hides a smile. "We," she said, as if Akoma did anything. But Nkiruka doesn't mind. Let her take the credit if it keeps the peace, she thinks. Mama Chinyere is clearly impressed. "It's as if your compound turned to palace overnight," she says, genuinely amazed. "Even the air here smells sweet. Akoma, you will have to send that stepdaughter of yours to teach my daughter how to clean and cook like this, oh." Akoma laughs, a bit forced. "Perhaps I will. You know it's all about discipline." Inside, she's thinking, how did everything get so clean? She half considers whether Nkiruka might have secretly gotten help from someone, but who would help her in the wee hours of the night? No, impossible. Maybe the fear of punishment finally shook the girl into overdrive, she concludes. Mama Chinyere chit-chats a bit more, glancing curiously at Nkiruka, who normally looks downtrodden, but today almost cheerful. But soon the neighbor departs, off to spread news of Akoma's sparkling compound and excellent housekeeping. Once she's gone, Akoma rounds on Nkiruka, not aggressively, but with a probing tone. "So, you think you've done well today, eh?" she asks. Nkiruka simply nods and replies, "I'm happy you are pleased, ma." Akoma has no scolding to offer, which leaves her somewhat deflated. She can only grunt. Go and fetch me some fresh palm wine from Nuoke's store. We will have a nice drink this morning." Treating herself to palm wine before noon is Akoma's way of celebrating, apparently. Nkiruka takes a clay jug and heads out to do that, still feeling wonderful. As she walks, a few other villagers notice her. One woman remarks, "Is that Nkiruka? I almost didn't recognize her. She looks so bright today." A man passing by notes, "That girl's hard work is showing. She's practically glowing." Nkiruka hears these comments and ducks her head in modesty, but inside she thanks the old woman's magic for this sudden turn of fortune. However, wise Nkiruka knows she must stay humble and careful. A sudden change can arouse suspicion, and the last thing she wants is for Akoma or Adaku to cry witchcraft or become hostile out of jealousy. So she quietly continues her tasks, tries to not flaunt any magic openly, and remains the polite, gentle girl she has always been, just a bit more efficient now. Little does she know, this streak of change is perfectly timed, for soon an announcement will come from the palace that will set in motion the grand event to fulfill her destiny. But for this day at least, Nkiruka enjoys the small victories: a clean home, a satisfied family, if only temporarily, a belly full of good food, and the sweet knowledge that kindness and magic are at work in her life at last.